So did the U.S. government perform a psychological experiment or trauma-based mind control event on children at school, in the classroom? Where were you on January 28th, 1986? You were probably at school, like I was. And what happened that day? That's when the Space Shuttle Challenger allegedly exploded on live TV. I was talking to somebody the other day about this, and she said that she was in class watching this live on TV. And then it occurred to me, well, that's kind of strange. How often do you watch live TV in a classroom? And by that time, the space shuttle was kind of old news. This was like the 25th space shuttle launch. But there was one difference, is that there was a school teacher on board. That's what made it interesting. And especially for school children and teachers and for everyone in the education industrial complex, all eyes were on the space shuttle. This was a big deal. The first teacher, an ordinary civilian, otherwise known as peasant or useless eater, useless eaters in space. That in and of itself became a massive propaganda moment for NASA. What are the odds that students are watching this live in the classroom and then there's this huge explosion? Became one of the most iconic live breaking news events in television history. It was a defining moment because there was no real precedent for how the media covered a catastrophic live event. Now, even the JFK alleged assassination was not broadcast live on TV. That footage was only shown like 10 years later. At the time, 24-hour cable news hadn't taken off yet, including CNN. Most people had never heard of CNN yet, but after this, they knew about CNN. This created CNN, in fact. One of the first major tragedies to play out live on television, meaning people didn't just hear people talking about it, they actually saw it, whatever it was. This is 1986, all right? People still listen to Madonna. Metallica was still making good albums, and Michael Jackson was still black. It was really one of the first times that science and engineering have to be explicitly explained to the public and to the media. Well, they did that again in 9/11. They explained the science to us peasants. We're just dumb peasants, after all. And then in 2020, they explained the science to us. Don't ever try to question the science, you ignorant, useless eater. It was the classroom lesson no one had anticipated. Well, I would say somebody anticipated this. Somebody planned it. Somebody engineered it. Trauma-based mind control events don't just happen on their own. They are planned, orchestrated, and executed. And this was written just about a week after the actual event. You think I'm making stuff up? Do you think I'm jumping the shark? No. Look at TV brought the trauma to classroom millions. TV brought the trauma to the children in the classroom. CNN was the only TV station to broadcast this live, and most people didn't even have CNN, and the schools didn't have CNN. So how did they even get the live feed into the schools in 1986? Some of you weren't even born at that time yet. You have no idea what it was like. Duran Duran was still popular. That's a trauma-based mind control right there. Across the country, students and teachers who had gathered to share the excitement of the launch. So they're all excited. They're making history. There's a regular teacher going into space, allegedly. Instead, experienced the immediacy of death, brought home with horrifying impact by television. All right, trauma. They were traumatized. I'm just reading what it says. It says right here that the school children were traumatized at school. To promote the Teacher in Space program, NASA had arranged for many students in the U.S. to view the launch live at school with their teachers. All right, NASA arranged it with these satellite dishes, and apparently this footage from CNN was the only broadcast known for many years. 2,000 elementary schools and high schools across the country had sent in letters confirming that they would be viewing the launch and the lessons by satellite. Some 2.5 million students nationwide were viewing Challenger's takeoff. How? Did they just turn on the TV? No. NASA hooked up satellite dishes to the schools. To how many schools? To 2,000 schools. And at an average of slightly over 1,000 students per school, you get about 2.5 million students nationwide. So my question to you is, were you one of these students participating in this experiment? Did NASA hook your school up to a satellite feed? Countless millions more school children were sitting in classrooms listening to radios or watching continuous replays of the event on public and commercial stations. The continuous replays. We've seen this in 2001. We've seen this in 2020. When the accident occurred, there was just stunned silence. It was shock, utter disbelief. In school after school across the country, teachers, students, and administrators described long minutes of silence followed by crying, despair, anger, and questions for which there were no satisfactory answers. Just think if this was intentionally created to traumatize people. Who would do something that evil? I think you know the answer. It's a shared event, a shared traumatizing event. Although technology brought the day's tragedy into the homes of citizens nationwide, it was particularly painful for the education community. Some of the students just put their heads down on the desk and watched in disbelief. I would say that we will definitely be watching our students very closely, at least in the next few days. Yeah, you got to observe the experiments. And here's an article from the New York Times. The shuttle explosion at Mission Control, silence and grief fill a day of horror long dreaded. It was the 25th shuttle flight, the first of 16 planned for 1986, and the news agencies were backing off expensive remote coverage of what increasingly appeared to be a routine event. So then why was it broadcast live in all these schools? Why did NASA hook up satellite dishes to 2,000 schools so that over 2.5 million school children could watch it live? And just by coincidence, it happens to become a traumatizing event. What are the odds of that? And I don't know how much it costs to install these satellite dishes. Even if it's only $1,000, that's 2,000 schools. That's like over $2 million, but it's probably more than that. So millions of dollars were spent, taxpayer dollars spent to perform a trauma-based mind control experiment on school children at school. So this kind of indicates that school is an indoctrination center and a mind control center, and also they perform experiments on the school children. So what is trauma-based mind control? It refers to techniques used to manipulate individuals through severe psychological trauma, often seen in contexts like cults or abusive environments. This form of control can lead to dissociative symptoms and complex psychological issues in survivors. They hooked up all these schools, thousands of schools, with satellite dishes to watch a live traumatizing event that may have been planned in advance using special effects. Trauma-based mind control is a complex and disturbing phenomenon that involves the manipulation of an individual's psyche through traumatic experiences. Oh, look at this. Education Week says TV brought the trauma to classroom millions. It's the same thing. It's the same exact sentence. TV brought the trauma to the minds of children in the classroom. They had no escape. They couldn't leave. It seems like this was aimed specifically at children. Probably more school children watched this event than adults. And that's why they had the teacher on board. Well played. Like, who thought of this? Here's how you do it, by the way. Method: isolation. Description: victims are separated from their support networks, social distancing, working from home, lockdowns, and don't forget the contact tracing, making them more dependent on their abuser or controller. But if you inject the experimental technology into your body, maybe you can talk to another human being face to face someday. Induced trauma. Victims are subjected to repeated stressors or trauma to maximize susceptibility. Remember when like a 95-year-old woman died in Sydney and then they locked down the entire city because a 95-year-old person died of old age? Now that's on the people as well. Remember the Garden of Eden, Satan, Adam, and Eve were all guilty and they were all punished. Mind control techniques, methods such as hypnosis or conditioning, are used to reinforce the new behaviors or beliefs. Now, luckily, most of us are not susceptible to mind control techniques. Understanding trauma-based mind control is crucial for identifying and addressing the psychological scars it leaves on individuals. It highlights the importance of compassionate response and therapeutic interventions to aid recovery from such profound psychological manipulation. And here are some studies done from the Journal of Communication: How Children Reacted to Televised Coverage of the Space Shuttle Disaster. They actually studied the effects of this trauma-based mind control event. So again, I'm just really reading what it says here in Education Week, where it says TV brought the trauma. Millions of students in the classrooms. And just by coincidence, trauma-based mind control is used to manipulate individuals through severe psychological trauma. Were you exposed to this trauma-based mind control event on January 28th, 1986? Were you in a classroom? And if so, why were you watching live TV in a classroom when you're supposed to be studying? So to me, this seems like a classic case of trauma-based mind control with some special effects, deliberately targeting children, sponsored by the government, paid for by U.S. tax dollars. All right, I hope everybody has a happy 4th of July. Happy birthday, America. Make America great again.